Authorities say they're overwhelmed with the growing need.
It's Thursday night in Campbelltown in Sydney's outer west, and Mel O'Halloran is getting her weekly food hamper from a mobile community pantry.
Without the Foodbank, our food for the week would probably, we'd be lucky if we could probably end up just buying the staples, so like bread, milk, butter. We wouldn't have a lot of meat or a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. We just wouldn't be able to afford it.
Mel, who also volunteers for the food pantry, has been using the service on and off for about 18 months now. But since lockdown began, her husband and 2 children have never been more in need.
We have had a lot of new members come through that have found us because of the crisis at the moment and everything, and they are just so appreciated that they can still at least just put food on their table.
West and southwest Sydney is home to over 3 million people and have the toughest restrictions in the state. Foodbank CEO John Robertson says it's led to a food security crisis.
This has been very hard for more and more people, and this is much harder, and we're seeing much more of an increase in demand than we did at the peak of the lockdowns in 2020. There's no doubt people are doing it tough. We're seeing tougher restrictions in place. We're seeing more people who are being stood down, and as a result, they're struggling to put food on the table.
In Sydney, the proof is in the numbers. Demand for food has soared by as much as 118% in parts of Sydney's west.
In some of the local government areas across the city, and the state for that matter, we've seen increases beyond, I think, what anyone could believe was possible. I've had other people who've had jobs who've contemplated things they've said they've never ever thought about before, including stealing food just to keep putting food on the table. I think for a lot of people, there's no full appreciation of just how tough this is.
The issues have also been stark in Victoria. 2 weeks ago, Foodbank had to close its Melbourne warehouse because demand was so enormous, police said the traffic caused a public safety issue.
Seeing the cars back so far and having people turned away, and we couldn't be there to help them. It was traumatic. Some of the stories were heartbreaking. So we've got small business people turning up with the sign writing on their car, they just can't work. Single mums with their kids in the car because there's no food on the table. People living in their car turning up. Ex-veterans from Afghanistan who've watched what's happened over there, and they're breaking. Everyone's breaking at the moment.
In Sydney's inner west, Vivian Moore was close to breaking point. When her work dried up, she was unable to supplement her small disability pension.
I was not eating 3 meals a day. I was relying on friends, and I was in distress.
Before she found a food pantry, she was worried she would go hungry.
Fear and anxiety and isolation and shame that I can't look after myself, and this shouldn't be happening to me.
Vivian is grateful she can now rely on weekly food parcels in these tough times. But those running food services say the demand from the hungry keeps growing.
It's becoming more and more apparent that COVID-19 is a disease that's having a greater impact on people from lower socioeconomic areas across Sydney and, frankly, right across the state. I think the measures that are in place are potentially reinforcing that perception, and certainly we're seeing people in those areas doing it much more tough.
Next week, the Defence Minister